It's time to take off your clothes, enjoy clothes-free living, and join us for Naked, Nudists, and Naturists.
Welcome to Naked, Nudists, and Naturist, the show that celebrates clothes-free living for all. I'm your host, Frank Stone.
And I'm your correspondent, Lisa Monroe, and I'll be reporting on all things within the Naturist community. So it's time to get naked and join us.
And enjoy clothes-free living on Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. Well, greetings and welcome into Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 72 today. We've been waiting 167 hours for you to come back, and here you are, ready to celebrate with us and enjoy clothes-free living for all of the right reasons. As you already know, and as you have come to expect, the pool is ready to go, ready for you to dive in. The hot tub is fired up at 104 degrees. The grill is going full bore. Fruits and vegetables off to the right. We have cold drinks off to the left. We have hot drinks and desserts inside. And yes, a cigar bar in the back left corner of the pool area. So help yourself and enjoy this next hour. Again, clothes-free living for all the right reasons on Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. Really glad to be with you. We truly enjoy this time together with you. We've mentioned that many times throughout the show's run here. And it amazes even us sometimes. As we were planning out this show, Lisa looked at me and said, 72, are you kidding me? Where did the time go? Well, it went into the studio, and it went into podcast land and everything else under the sun regarding the show. And we enjoy doing this for you and with you, and enjoy spending this time together with you. Every single week, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time on Spotify, we've been together with you, including today, since July 1st of 2023, a brand new show every Saturday morning. And we've also added it to YouTube. So we will post here on Spotify. It goes to all the podcast platforms out there on Saturday morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Then we will post on YouTube on Sunday. Every episode of this show is now on YouTube. Although if you're listening on Saturday, 72, this show won't be there till tomorrow. So we are building and growing and including more people throughout our journey here, and we thank you very much for being with us. On today's show, we will again hear from Andee Rogers. She used to submit a whole bunch of reports, took some time off, has a report today from Mountaindale. She and her husband Tom visited there recently. They'll tell us how it went. Of course, Lisa Monroe will be here, and then we will have part 2 of my joint interview with Linda WEBER from the American Association for Nude Recreation and CYNTHIA HOLBACH from the Naturist Society Foundation, both presidents of their respective organizations. Part 2 of my interview with them today. Well, again, you're listening to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 72, and now let's hear from Andee Rogers and her husband, Tom.
Hi, this is Andee.
And this is Tom on the Winter on Wheels I'm Perfect tour.
It's been a few months, but we have another report for you. So it was an absolute pleasure to visit Mountaindale Sun Resort again. It's been many years since we've been there, which really is a shame because it's only a few hours away from SMR, which is our home club. And it's near North Plains, Oregon, just on the other side of Portland from us. The road in is an easy drive, but it does have a small hill to climb. But there's no worries there. Just make sure you have ample giddy-up in your vehicle. Well, it also happened to be the AANR-Northwest Fall Board meeting, so there were lots of folks on the grounds Friday through Sunday. And it was my first meeting as the Northwest president, and I was just a teensy bit nervous, but we all got a lot accomplished, and we always have a great time doing it as well. Well, after lunch on Sunday, there were 13 women who joined me for the I'm Perfect presentation. It's been a few months since my last one, and I was a little nervous that I'd forget key details. But looking around at all the beautiful women at the table, I felt more like I was standing in the presence of people that I'd known forever. And isn't it amazing how the nudist community's like that? You can strike up a conversation with someone you've never met, but they feel like family. One of the ladies has been following me on this podcast, and we got to meet beforehand. And she is such a wonderful soul. And again, it feels like we've known each other always. As I began my usual talk, I shared about my tormentor and his tactics for my daily doses of his cruelty. For the first time, though, as I explained that after I told my mom about him, our relationship became what was most likely normal sibling rivalry. Having never experienced normal, I can't be sure, but it was a decent relationship the rest of my years at home. What was different was that I found myself missing that time in my life, and it felt good to look back fondly on it. My biggest emphasis, however, was on how we need to build each other up as women, going deeper in conversations and getting to know each other on a completely different level. These intimate conversations together are what create lasting bonds. I asked if they might want to start a winter group at MSR and told them where there were lots of ideas on the website and how to get them started. I wanted to share how one of my close girlfriends hides encouraging cards in my home. We've been doing this back and forth for years. It's usually 6 cards, but this time around she just hid 4. I found number 1 and I found number 2, and I've opened them. And then I found card number 4, but I can't open it until I find number 3, which is maddening because I have searched and I have searched. But that's just part of the fun. Card number 1 reads, Simply Grateful on the front cover. And then when you open it up, it says, Grateful because you are beautiful, you are loving, you are giving, you are a good friend, you are my friend, and I am grateful I know you and you know me. How amazing and powerful are those words. Words like that help change the narrative. Uh, what I heard from my brother, who was my tormentor all those years, were horrible, negative, painful things. But now, uh, what I hear are words like I'm beautiful and loving and giving, and that's from my girlfriend, who makes sure that I know that those things are what she sees in me, and it's incredibly powerful. So I encourage the women to leave cards or just simply a note for their friends and or, just a woman they would like to encourage and build up. Doesn't have to be anything big. Even a word that tells them the positive things that you see in them. As women, we don't always see what others can clearly see in us. I also challenge them to choose their own word and write it down. Put it on the mirror to see in the morning and in the evening. Continually seeing the words of encouragement that we've chosen for ourselves, again, changes that narrative in our head from the words we come up with that sometimes aren't so nice about ourselves.
It was a fantastic day there. So we met out on the upper deck of the lodge. We started our discussion by introducing ourselves, and each of us shared how we got into the nude way of life. There were some very similar stories. Most everybody had a part of this in their life for many years before discovering clubs that they could openly embrace the feeling of being nude in nature and with other people. We had discussions about younger and new people coming to the clubs and how to welcome them, especially single women. I once again gave them advice of introducing themselves, telling them where you would be, and then leave them alone. Everyone thought that sounded reasonable to try. Then, of course, we talked about how some of the clubs I had visited on our tour didn't know much about ANR, and so we talked about how important it is to be a part of supporting ANR and the GAT team, who is looking out for our rights to be nude. We spent
An extra night there. We decided to stay in, another night. And then we just sat around the pool, which was really fun. And I spoke with some of the women who stuck around for the rest of the day, and we continued our discussions about encouraging each other, spending time together, and how to make friendships if you aren't always at a club. And then one great resource is the meet and greets that ANR sponsors twice a month. There's a women in nude recreation breakout room in which women can get together and talk about any issue they have, or just spend time getting to know each other. And Tom and I got to share our retro trailer. We took our beautiful lemon drop retro trailer and showed everybody, and they loved it. And it's been a lot of fun spending time in it. But for now, we're taking the rest of the year off. We'll be with you next year when we visit other amazing clubs like Greenhaven and Helios in Canada, as well as Tiger Mountain and Bear Mountain in the Northwest.
And then, till then, we'll see you down the road.
The very terrific Andee Rogers and her husband Tom, they've been visiting naturist resorts all over the place out west, and they will take some time off now for the winter and reconvene sometime in 2025, and we'll get them back on the show when they are ready to go. We also had Andee on for a brief interview early this year, and then we had a full-length interview with Andee Rogers. Well, guess what? The next two shows, 73 and 74, we will talk to Tom Rogers and find out what he has been up to as they visit these clubs. So Tom Rogers, the next couple of shows, episode 73 and 74. You are listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 72. Hope you're enjoying the hour. Hope you're enjoying it clothes-free, if that is possible to do so. And I don't know about you, but do you hear music in the background? Listen for a minute here. Yep, there's definitely music there. I'm sure you can hear it as well. That can only mean one thing. It's time for the great, the terrific, the completely over-the-top, fully clothes-free, and fully smiling, our Naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. And here she is, the one and only, the completely over-the-top, fully clothes-free, fully smiling. I'm not looking at her now because she's making faces at me. Our Naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. Good morning, Lisa. How are you today?
Well, I do have you well trained now, don't I? I love that. Okay, I'll try to be good.
I was looking above your head, and then I thought, I'll look down, and there you were dancing, being kind of semi-foolish, but in a fun way. I almost lost it, but I kept it together. Are you impressed?
I'm incredibly impressed. What a professional you are. It's just amazing to me. Darn it. Gals and I were trying to figure out how to get you, but anyway.
Well, you've done some terrestrial radio stuff before, and you know what a real radio studio is like in the terrestrial world. Not quite as bad here because we don't have as many people, but it's a circus and a zoo all in one. Yet the host, has to be very calm, very smooth. You have no idea that people are yelling at the host,
Yeah.
do this, don't forget this. Hey, I have a guest here on the line. So-and-so is on line 3. But then the host has to take all that in while speaking smoothly as though he's just alone in his basement, in a private little studio. Not the way it works. So I'm kind of used to it. So when you pull this stuff, I just didn't expect it a few weeks ago. Now I expect it. So I'm able to forward march, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Well, as you know, I am used to terrestrial radio, and I did like live talk shows, and I did voiceovers, and I did commercials, and I did all kinds of things. And so I've had that tried on me too, believe me. There are pranksters loose in radio stations just as much as any place else. So I do understand the complexity of the job that you do as host.
Two things. First of all, that's why I kick everybody out of here. I don't want anybody in the studio at all when I'm recording alone, and nobody in the studio during our segments except the two of us. They have to leave the premises, but I don't want any risk. But it just triggered a thought, and this isn't part of our planned program today. But I was in Toronto a long time ago. I only claim to be 27, so if I say it was 35 years ago, the math won't add up, so I won't tell you when, but a long time ago, in a hotel, put the TV on in the morning just to get an idea what's going on news-wise before we got the day going. There was some woman on there, alone, standing, talking to the camera about whatever. I don't even remember I think it was a news show. And she started laughing, and then she started giggling. And she said, "You will not believe what the men in the studio just did to me, but I'll try to make it through." I thought, well, now I got to find out.
Exactly.
It turns out, and this was not a Naturism show. It was just a regular news show. they had taken their clothes off to try to get her to try to get her distracted, and they certainly distracted her because she lost it. And I think they went to a commercial, they came back, and she was still laughing, but made it through. But that's one way to do it, and to me, that's a great way to lose your job in the textile world. But apparently, they literally pulled it off, and life was okay, I guess, right?
I suppose the owner of that station and was involved in that little
Yeah.
escapade. So I wonder if they had the FCC in Canada, but it
No,
wasn't
well,
on
they
the
might have
air.
their own. Yeah,
It
right.
wasn't on the air, so they didn't see it. So that's pretty funny.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
that's
that.
true. But it was a more innocent time. I don't think you'd try that in
Yeah,
2024.
no,
But
I don't think you would.
with all the stuff
And
going on, but back then, no, what the heck? Let's have a little fun, take our clothes off, make her laugh, and it worked. Never, no harm, no foul,
that is
and life
funny.
moved on.
I love that.
You brought in a couple of articles today. The first one was from 2022. It appeared on the British Naturism site, but it reappeared recently. That's what got your attention. Maybe just tell us what that's all about.
Well, a couple years ago, Ipsos did a um, survey of who approved naturism, who was, who felt themselves or called themselves naturists. And it was very surprising because, Britain has a relatively small population compared to the rest of, larger countries, and almost 7 million people in Britain identified as naturists.
Mhm.
So I think that kind of tells us, and they were talking about the fact that it was growing. Well, that's a couple of years ago. And but yet to me it feels the British Naturist Society is doing a good job of getting out the, events and people and so forth to enjoy the nature's lifestyle. But recently I've seen a series of articles about the decline of naturism in Europe. And these were as recent as just a couple of months ago. And, we have the same sort of issue going on here in that we're seeing a decline in naturism. So it's, I think it's something worth mentioning and discussing because there is apparently a more global decline than we anticipated. Because, Spain and Germany are supposed to be two of the largest nature's communities in the world. And if they're starting to see some impact from how society is reacting to naturism, then we have some things we need to probably stop and think about. We know we're growing in certain areas, but we also don't want that decline to to overcome what we're trying to do positively.
Well, some of the statistics on the article that you brought in, 39%, so let's say 40% of adults have taken part in nude recreation such as skinny dipping, sunbathing, or visiting a naturist beach. Well, that's quite a bit. It's getting close to half who have at least tried it.
Hmm.
And as we talked about before, I've never met anybody who's tried it and said, whoa, that is not for me. Give me my pants and shirt and let's get out of here. Everybody enjoys it for different reasons initially, but then eventually they come to realize mentally, emotionally,
Hmm.
physically, you just feel better about the world and about yourself when you do it. And the next statistic, they're asked on how many occasions they had been naked in the company of other people, which could include video conferencing,
Hmm.
and a little over about 22% said that they've done that within the last year, at the time this came out. And then young adults are more likely to get their clothes off than older people. Almost half of the 16 to 24-year-old respondents have done it at least once in the last 12 months, about 6% of people 45 to 75. And I've noticed that with a younger crowd now. It was like that when you and I were young, 200 and 300 years ago, whenever it was. And then it changed for a while. Now it's kind of reversing back to how it was when we were younger,
Hmm.
in that 16 to 24 range. It's, hey, you guys want to go swimming? Sure. And without even talking about it, the clothes come off and you dive in. It's not a big deal. It's not, whoa, can't believe that. It's just what you do because it's fun and it's relaxing. So maybe some of your thoughts on that.
It is natural. It is just sitting here thinking about that. This is a comfortable way to be. I guess because I'm used to it and I enjoy it, that there's never an embarrassment or a problem or whatever with it. I think that we need to get back to that feeling of just enjoying life and maybe somebody enjoys life with their clothes on. That's perfectly fine. But for those of us who really feel a deeper connection to nature, this is the only way to go. One of the things in this an article about the German naturists and their fear for the future, which was in the Guardian,
Mhm.
they're talking about the fact that what's happening is that the younger crowd's not coming in, and we know from hearing, hearing discussions with Linda Weber from ANDEE, there's a huge concern for us here in the U.S. as well. And it was interesting because one of the things that the Germans brought up that the younger people don't like is that apparently in these German resorts or areas, they have things like nap time in the middle of the afternoon. When I guess it's all like kind of a siesta would be in Spain or whatever,
Right.
but they're saying they don't like these pre-scheduled things that they do. They want to be more free spirit. They want to be more reactive to what's happening at the moment. And so the two lifestyles are not meshing because I mean, I wouldn't want to go somewhere where they said it's 3 o'clock nap time.
Yeah.
I might have taken a nap at 1, but I might not
Yeah.
make it, I might not 3. So I think there's some generational things that maybe we need to look at too.
Yeah, yeah, and that's come out many times from many different guests we've had on the show. The younger people don't want to just sit around the pool for 6 hours and sip iced tea and say, "Well, that was a terrific day, Grandpa. Let's go home." They want to do stuff. They want to hike. They want to run around. They want to swim. They want to play this game or that game. Is that what's going on in Germany? I didn't read the entire article, but are they just not having enough for the younger folks to do, or what?
I think they're doing this in many of the areas, but I think Germans tend to have like the idea of just an open area and you just kind of freely go around and enjoy yourself in some of these places. But there, I'm sure that there are individual clubs that do these kinds of things, but it may again be not as maybe too organized for young people who like the spontaneity better than what they um, are seeing now. So it's just there's someone also mentioned in this article that some of these young kids are fearing, will their photo be taken if they're on if they're in one of these resorts, and I'm thinking that's the group that's more social media aware. So that it's surprising to me that they would be concerned that that their identity be released or whatever. And
Hmm.
that's a concern for every one of us. We don't want to go to a new beach and then have photos taken by textile people and then all of a sudden we're everywhere. So I think there's so many people involved, so many people with different attitudes and different ways of wanting to enjoy themselves that it's really hard to come to some consensus. So I think what Britain does, they seem to have events all the time. The British youth seem to be flourishing. Maybe we should take some lessons from them and really, start to open up some of these organizations.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point about the social media. I hadn't thought about that, but again, when you and I were
Hmm.
16 to 24, 300 years ago,
Yes, for
at
you.
least for
No.
me, yeah, we didn't have to worry about somebody whipping out a cell phone, taking a picture,
Mm-mm.
putting it on social media, all while we were totally unaware that it was happening. And then we get back to our blanket, say, "Whoa, Frank, Lisa, son of a gun! It's you got 2,000 likes already on your nude picture." Like, what? What are you talking about? Well, we didn't have to deal with that. And you're right, younger people do. Let's say they get a job and it's a good job. They go to a nude beach or a nude resort. Somebody takes their picture, which they're not supposed to do, but they do, and they post it. They show it to work from Monday, and the boss says, "Come in, we got to talk. This is not how we represent our company, and you're going to have to go." So there is a risk, I guess, until we get to the point, which we've talked about a zillion times, bringing it back around so that it's normal. It's like, "Oh, so nude picture of you at the beach there, Frank or Lisa. Looks like you had a great weekend. Enjoy your day." As natural as that, right?
It should be as natural as
Yeah.
that, and it
Right.
isn't, unfortunately. I spent many years in human resources, and
Mm.
one of the rules of the company is what an employee does on their off time is none of their business. It
Mhm.
shouldn't be. Some companies try to make it so.
Right.
But the only stipulation was that as long as whatever they are doing creates no harm to the organization, that they can't
Right.
be associated with whatever that activity was. Well, to me, that would never be a problem. If someone said, "Oh, I saw it," well, so what? They were at the beach, big deal. For me, that would be no problem, but for some people, it would be serious. And there are a lot of people who like to post their photos out there. More power to them if that's what they choose. But there are an awful lot of people who don't, and I think that's also one of the reasons that naturists are afraid. And I think the German article makes a point that we know a lot of people who are naturists who just don't want to get involved in a lot of this because of that kind of fear of exposure.
Hmm. Well, in some ways, I don't know if this is a great comparison, but in terms of drinking alcohol, for example, you work Monday through Friday. Saturday night, you go out and have one, two, or 15, and you stumble to the car, barely make it home. Is that your company's business? To me, it's not, because if you show up on time for work Monday and you're productive, what's the issue? I have a friend who worked in the military his entire career. He was not enlisted. He worked as a civilian working for the military. And once a year, he went to, I think, his boss's house. He had a wine cellar. The guy was a collector of wine. And they just drank wine all blasted night. And he said, but the rule is, I'll drive there. But on the way home, my wife, who was not allowed to have any alcohol that night, will be the driver home. And so why do asking a bunch of questions? Why? He said, because if I get pulled over for drunk driving, even if it's barely over the limit, he goes, I'm done. My career is done. My pension is gone. It's all lost in one night. So I guess that's a little bit different because we're talking about the military. What if something happens on a Saturday night? Hey, we need you at the office. Something big just happened in some other country. Well, sorry, I can't make it. I'm half in the bag here. That's alcohol and that's military. I don't know how naturism fits into that with any company, including the military, although some people could use it for blackmail.
Yeah.
Like you're, again, I don't even know how we got on the topic of military other than my friends working, but you're an officer in the Army
Right.
and you go to a nude beach. Well, somebody from another country takes your picture and says, okay, we're going to put this on the cover of Time magazine unless you do this, that, and the other thing for us. So maybe that's part of it.
I think it's very possibly part of it, and I think especially from anyone who's associated with the government, civilian or not, civilian contracts are important, and there's a lot of money involved here, plus a lot of sensitive information, and so yes, anything that exposes that kind of person to blackmail would be a bad thing, and so I think that the one of the things we always have to remember as naturists is that we need to be naturists where appropriate.
Mhm.
We want to be naturists everywhere. We want that pathway open to us. But you know what? It isn't. So we can't just walk into, Publix and say, "Hey, I'm naked," and then go to I'd freeze to death if I did that. But anyway, it's a whole nother thing. But we just can't do that. So we have to be appropriate. And I think it's interesting, we have to push the boundaries sometimes and be activists about certain things, but we also have to be smart because bad decisions create more issues for you down the road and don't open up people's eyes to the fact that we're being natural about what we do as opposed to being pushy and aggressive about what we do.
Right. Occasionally we'll use a word on this show where people in other countries, even throughout the United States, well, what does that word mean? They'll have to look it up. You used the term Publix a moment ago. We go
Yeah.
into Publix naked. It's Publix,
Yeah.
and that's a grocery store chain, right?
Yes,
So,
it is. I'm sorry. It's just that's when I think of groceries, I think of that store. So,
yeah,
yeah, that could be a tiny bit
yeah.
confusing. And in fact, there have been some memes out about that change in the spelling of Publix
Yeah.
with an X.
So just for clarification, when you said we're going to walk into Publix naked, you're talking
Yeah.
about Publix, the grocery store,
Yes, yes,
not anything else.
yes.
All right. And last thing I wanted to bring up, and I enjoyed last week's part one of the interview with Linda WEBER and CYNTHIA HOLBACH, American Association for Nude Recreation, the Nature Society Foundation, both presidents working together as the two leaders of the two major organizations on naturism within the United States, working together, putting their heads together. Can we do something to help you? Can you do something to help us? Can we both get bigger and better and more productive if we work together. And I think it's absolutely terrific. You'll hear part 2 in just a few moments after we're done here. But it reminds me, when we first started the show, we reached out to a lot of people who do what we do, and we promoted several. One never thanked us at all. The other thanked us the first show, or maybe before the first show. Thank you in advance. And the third one got mad at us. Like, guys, what in the we're just trying to be a part of a team here. We never had the intention to come in and blow everybody out of the water. It was just, there are players in the field. We wanted to join the team, and kind of like a baseball team. You got 9 guys in the field. Let's all work together. And then the entire team wins. That's what Linda and Cynthia are doing. That's what we tried to do. And will we try again? I don't know. That aside, I'm glad that Linda and Cynthia are putting their heads together and in both organizations together to help each other. How about you?
Well, I think it's tremendous that they're doing that, because I think I mentioned to you there's a state motto, one of the states in the U.S. that says, "United we stand, divided we fall." And that's actually a very true statement, because if we don't work together, I've done it with companies, I've done it with other, people involved in my jobs. We've done it personally. It's smarter to be unified than it is to be, separate and following a path and being angry at each other. And it's a ridiculous way. So Cynthia and Linda, I think, are beginning to pave the way to show we may have different paths, but we can be the same. And it's important that we, put that unified message out there. I think that's what happens in Britain. I think that's what they're attempting to start to do in Germany and Spain. We have to, if we're going to survive as a naturist community, I think that's what we have to do.
I've always likened it, let's say, to a family or so, or a team or a company. We're not here to compete with each other. We're here to compete with those on the outside. For example, if it's the John Smith family, everybody in the John Smith family, you're going to do what you have to do to make the John Smith family better. Right. If the Jones family down the street has a problem with that, well, we'll take them on. If we can make them better, we will. But if they're going to fight us, I guess we'll have to fight back. Well, using that for naturism, we're in this together. So if everybody works together, everybody gets better and bigger. And then the non-naturists, the textile people who want to shoot at us, well, now we're bigger and better. We can shoot back with more bullets. Lack of a better term, right?
Yeah, and if you took something before Congress, let's say, and said we really need this bill passed, or a state legislature, whatever, if they look at it and go, yeah, well, you had 60,000 members, 20 years ago, and now you only have 30. So what's the point? You have nothing to bring to us. You have no strength of voting block or any kind of prestige, because you're losing. So yeah. I think that we need to remember that we're putting ourselves into a bad situation. So we need to figure out what the trigger is, and also just start working as hard as we can. And I think we're seeing that in Anna, and I think we're seeing that in other places as well.
Yeah. So hats off to Linda WEBER and Cynthia Holbach for doing that.
Absolutely.
And we'll get to part 2 of that interview in just a moment. But with that, Lisa Monroe, we do have to head for the hills. Go out there and have a great close-free week. We'll talk next time.
You too, Frank. Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye. The very terrific Lisa Monroe brings a ray of sunshine to the studio every time she shows up. And yes, other ladies who work here, you bring rays of sunshine every day as well. I think I just kept myself out of trouble for another week. We'll see how that plays out, but hopefully I did a good enough job to be unscathed for at least the next week or so. You are listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 72. We thank you very much for being with us. Don't forget, every show, brand new, Saturday morning, 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time on Spotify, but also now on YouTube starting on Sundays. The new show will go up there as well. Well, let's get to part 2 now of my interview with the presidents from the American Association for Nude Recreation and the Nature Society Foundation, Linda WEBER and Cynthia Holbach. Conversely, people will say, and I've noticed this too, clothes, when you put clothes on, depending on what you put on, it changes you somewhat. It might be a 0.1%, it might be 100%, or somewhere in between. You're more confident, you feel taller, you feel skinnier, depending. And I was thinking this one time, my son got a traffic ticket. And he said, I didn't do this. I believe the officer was incorrect. I said, well, then we need to go to court and explain this to the judge. And he said, and he panicked because I can't do that. I said, I'll go with you. And so he said, well, how are you going to do this? And I said, I'm going to put on my best suit. I'm going to look like $1 million. They're going to think I own the courthouse when I walk in because the way I'm going to walk around, and then I'll deal with the judge very professionally. You don't ever want to be disrespectful. And so I did that. And as soon as I walked in to the, I guess he was the attorney in the judge's courtroom. He looked at me and he said, well, I don't need to see you. And I said, well, I'm with him. He goes, are you his attorney? Now, I'm not an attorney, but he thought I was because of the way I dressed, certainly by the way I acted. But if I had been nude and acted that way, I don't think so. It was the clothes that made me into an attorney in this guy's eyes.
Right.
I said, no, I'm not his attorney. He goes, are you an attorney at all? I was trying to drag it out as long as I could. And I finally had to say, no, I'm not. I'm his dad, and I'm representing him to give him support. And that guy, I could tell immediately, all the tension left his face, like, oh, okay. So he's not an attorney. I can kind of take it easy here. Bottom line, my son got out of the ticket. He had to pay something, but got no points, and nothing went on his record. It was kind of a good deal the way it turned out. Do you see it that way? Let me go back to Cynthia, because you're next in line here, that sometimes we can use clothes in society to get what we need to get, as far as maybe similar to what I did?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. People dress all the time to either impress somebody or to say who they are. But that's, I think that's the beauty of being naked in a group of people where you don't know what somebody does. You don't know what, their profession is, because everyone's naked. It just neutralizes everything. And you have better conversations with people that way because you don't have those barriers.
Well, I've noticed that every single time, literally without fail, I can communicate better, more easily, and much more quickly in a naturist environment than I can in a clothed environment, because we're all playing games. I played the attorney game. I didn't act like one, but he thought I did. So now I'm playing a game because I had a great suit on. When you're nude, you can't really play games. There you are. You're you. You don't have a $3,000 suit or Armani clothes going on. And Linda Weber, back to you. You've noticed that the same way. You can use clothes when you need to, when you have to, but if left to your own devices, let's just have our clothes off and get to know each other better, right?
I would much rather have that because the conversation is different. We aren't getting the visual clues, and you see that, and women in the back of their heads are going, oh, okay, that's a nice purse, that's a nice outfit, and then so we start measuring ourselves because I don't care, how my clothes are. In fact, there's a show, where they come in and they completely redress you. I'm sure they'd come into mine and just throw a match into my, because I'm like thrift store chic because, I believe in recycling and redoing. And so nobody's ever going to get these clues of, wow, she's really successful with her little bootins and everything like that, because I don't. That's not where my focus is. So my stuff is pretty, outdated. I don't chase the trends, and that's what they want you to do. And some of it is so ridiculous anyway that I would never wear that stuff. So, by just shucking that off and, yes, I have to be, clothed in certain ways because the world is still textile. But for the most part, I'm nude, how I always say, 25/8, until I have to go out that door. And then I'll ask my husband, okay, do I really have to get dressed? Or, or I get dressed and I say, okay, we're going to do everything that we need to do, because once I come home, the clothes go boing, and that's it. Yeah, to get me into clothes anyway. But yeah, they're a judgment tool. There's something that you get your visual clues from different people, and then that's when the judgment starts. Even in your mind, you just start kind of looking at people differently. But when you don't have that judgment and you don't have that measuring tool, and you're all nude, like I said, it's a different conversation because you could just be free and then just be out there. You don't have to sit there and do all the stuff that you do, in the textile world.
Now, just to be clear, because I think you coined a new phrase that I had not heard before. You said thrift store chic. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's how I basically, say that my clothes are because I do. I love thrift stores and there's a lot of great clothes there. So at
Yeah,
the time that I'm forced to have to go buy something,
yeah.
I'd rather not go and, participate in this fast fashion where, the clothes aren't even made that well. And it's, the here and now, which is, 5 minutes ago is, just one of those things. It's just keep, doing so I just go to thrift stores and I've got some fabulous clothes. I've gotten some designer clothes. So, at some point I do probably look, like I'm in the same decade, but see the thing is I don't care. I don't
Yeah,
care
right,
about that. So
right.
that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, yeah. For the most part, I've left my fancy suits behind too. I still own them. I just haven't given them away or gotten rid of them, but almost never put them on. For a wedding, yes. A funeral, well, I haven't been to one since I stopped wearing suits, but I guess I would wear one there. Otherwise, it's nothing. And if I have to walk outside in public, it's going to be shorts and a t-shirt. And believe me, nobody mistakes me for a judge or an attorney or a leading whatever in society when I walk around in shorts and a t-shirt. Oh, there's just some guy walking down the street in shorts and a t-shirt. Fine, terrific. I'm nobody. I'm just a human being like the rest of you are. And I know you see it the same way. But I want to get that quote out there: thrift store chic. Spend as little money as you need to because you're going to take them off anyway, right, Linda?
Absolutely. That's my motto and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
Back to Cynthia for clarification. Then you said you would not go to the store in the nude. Is that because society says you can't and you'd be in trouble if you did? And then the second part of that question, if it were allowed, if everybody showed up nude at the store, then you would, or I just want to get clarification on that.
Yeah, exactly. I guess if everybody else was nude, I would do it.
Okay.
But I do it because I feel like it's respectful of other people to have something on at the store, you know.
Yeah.
They're not they're not going there thinking it's a nudist thing, but that, if everyone else was nude, it would be different. So that's what I meant by that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I assume so. Just wanted to clarify it. And there's a store. Well, I live right on the road that runs along, right next to the road that runs along the Atlantic Ocean. And sometimes you walk into a store just to get something to drink, and you see a whole bunch of females in bikinis, barely their bikinis. And one day I walked in just to get coffee, and it's like, whoa, my goodness, you might as well be nude at that point because we
that's
can pretty much see it all. And the guy behind the counter who knows me by face because I go in there somewhat regularity, he said, "Would you like a job here?" And I said, "Well, no." Why? He goes, "Because this is what you get to see all day." And I thought, well, you see, that's the whole problem. That's the whole problem with this whole deal, isn't it, Linda?
Oh, I can
Yeah.
see that, and I've seen some of those little triangles of, fabric that really don't cover much, and for me, I think I actually look worse because it looks, it just looks so awful, and I'm thinking, "Really? You might as well be nude because 'cause you're so close to it
Yeah.
that, just take those little tiny pieces of things that probably cost you $50,
Yeah.
toss them away and join us." So,
Well, actually, I
yeah.
noticed on the Naturist Society Foundation page, it talks about membership for the Naturist Society, and it lists the price, and it says something to the effect of, in fact, I'll just read it exactly. Membership costs just $79 a year, probably less than you just paid for your last swimsuit. That's the biggest selling point of all time, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
You
And
go out
that's
there,
true because that's
yeah.
what they cost.
I mean, can you even buy a brand new now, not thrift store chic, but can you buy a brand new women's bathing suit for less than 79? I don't think so, but can you? I don't even know.
On sale, maybe.
I haven't looked, honestly. I have
Yeah.
not
No.
looked, so
Yeah. So,
Uh,
I mean, that's the biggest selling point right there. You can save money by being a naturist nudist, can't you?
you just don't need as many clothes. That's for
No,
sure.
no, not at all. One of the things that keeps popping up around here, and you'll see this on Twitter. We're on Twitter a lot. And I know, Linda, you're on other social media platforms as well. We get the whole exhibitionist thing. People will take selfies. Look at my naked body, everybody, and they just want people to see them nude. That's really not a part of naturism either, is it, Linda?
No, to me, it's the wholesomeness, and that's the kind of the line that we kind of walk. Because at first, when I went on, I didn't see a lot of women, and so that's why I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to stand up, because why would any women, want to follow me if I'm not showing myself? And so when I do it, it's very tasteful. It has a message. It's just not a picture. And my husband takes all the pictures, and he's a nudist too, so he'll make sure that it doesn't look untoward, or sometimes he'll say, what, that looks a little, like you're giving off a wrong vibe. So, I have somebody that kind of checks that. But if you look at my pictures, I mean, my grandmother would approve,
Yeah.
because they are not seductive poses or things like that. They just show me out in, mostly nature, sometimes, outside, or inside. But for the most part, I've got a message on there. So it's not exhibitionist. It's showing that I have no problem being nude, because I believe it's natural and I believe it's right, and I'm imparting a message. So at the point that anybody would ever think that, or I decided, oh, I think I want to be an exhibitionist, I would take everything down, because that is not what I'm there for. I'm only there really to say, if I can do it, you can do it too.
Yeah. Well, I've been out. If I go to the very back of my backyard, I can be seen by neighbors if they're looking out. They might not even be looking out, but if they are, they can see me. So when I go back there, mostly to clean up debris from a storm or whatever, I do have clothes on. And a friend of mine came over once unannounced, and he walked back there and said, "Whoa, can't believe you're wearing clothes out here." And I said, "Well, neighbors can see me here, and I'm not an exhibitionist. I don't just want to be out there if they don't want to see me in such a way." We haven't talked about it. It's not been a discussion topic at all. It doesn't mean that they don't know, but I'm not going to just put it in their face. And the comparison I've used a lot on the show is music. Let's say I like to blast heavy metal music, like as loudly as I possibly can, and I live in the middle of nowhere, so nobody cares. I'm all by myself. I can do what I want. If I move into a neighborhood or a condo or an apartment, well, now people might be offended by it. And I kind of look at naturism, nudism the same way. If somebody else is going to get angry, then there's really no point to it, because we're trying to de-stress by being nude, not add stress. Cynthia, your thoughts on that?
I agree with that. I I think it's being respectful, and you have to draw certain lines of when you have something on and when you don't. And we have neighbors who can see into our yard, but we're all in agreement. They're okay with it. We've discussed things because we have parties here. We have a yoga class once a month that comes in and does naked yoga on the grass. They'd like to do it more. My neighbor did say that she draws the line of seeing naked, butts in the air more than once a month. That's about as much as she could take. But so so there's certain things that you give and take if somebody's okay with something.
Yeah, and there are some people who have told me, "Hey, it's my body. If I want to be nude, I'm going to be nude. They don't have to look." I'm thinking that's not really the best way to approach it. Linda, what do you think about that?
You know what? It's all about respect, like Cynthia
Yeah,
was saying.
yeah,
You want to be respectful, because to me, people can sometimes be talked into things. Like I use a thing that my husband did not like sushi, wasn't going to take. I love it, and so our friends took us to a really nice place, and the little chef said, what do you like? And he kind of crafted all these nice rolls for him and everything. And now we have chopstick wars trying to get that last little piece, because he tried it, and he found it to be in a nice area, and friends and stuff like that, so it was a pleasant thing. And so now he eats sushi like a fiend. So you could talk people into things if it's the right way. Like if you just don't want to like answer the door and be nude all the time and shock people. I don't believe in that sort of in your face type thing, because that doesn't give the person any kind of they didn't have a choice in that. But
right.
if you say, hey, I'm having a party, we're going to be nude, it's just going to be a little gathering, we're going to go a little skinny dipping or something like that. Sometimes people say, oh, hey, I could, maybe think about that.
Yeah.
So it's in the presentation because sometimes when people get a little too militant and they're just running around out there nude, what does the media say? Oh, they're on drugs or they're gone crazy or there's something, they're mentally ill. But if you do it in a context like the World Naked Bike Ride or things where, people go, oh, hey, maybe I could join in that, then, they feel that it's a choice. They could opt in or opt out. And so, and there's also cultural things and societal things where people can't be nude. And so to be nude in front of them would be completely disrespectful. So I think I've made a lot of inroads by saying, be respectful, and then sometimes the people will come to you.
I have a great example of
Mhm.
when something went bad on that is San Francisco, where it was legal to be nude, and a couple people misused that. They would get nude in front of a elementary school.
Yeah.
They would walk down the street and play with themselves, and so they lost it
Yeah.
because people got upset and it wasn't cool anymore. Unfortunately, that's an example of when you cross the line.
Yeah. Well, in my mind, they are not true naturists. They're exhibitionists, which is not a part of what we do, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Cynthia Holbach of the Naturist Society Foundation. Before we get back to the your organization and ANR and putting the two together on some projects, I want to take a moment to get you to talk about your B&B. You have a Naturist B&B. What's that all about?
Oh, yeah, we have a clothing optional B&B that is in the clothing optional home network that Larry Link in Arizona started back in 2010, something like that. I'm not sure exactly when he started it. We came into it in 2012. My husband's company moved back to Mississippi and we were not going back to Mississippi. So he found Larry and we decided to open up our house. So we've had naturists from all over the world come in and stay with us. It's been a great experience where we usually spend breakfast with them. They usually come in for a reason, either a family thing or they have something to do. So they're not always here. Sometimes they come in and just want to sit by the pool, but not
Mm.
always. We've gotten to know quite a few of them. We have a few that come back regularly.
Yeah.
It's not something that we do all the time. It's not something where we've needed it financially, but it's been something that's been fun and we've enjoyed meeting all these people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was a time that I'm still traveling occasionally, but I used to travel a lot, and I would always try to book into some kind of a naturist B&B or naturist resort if reasonable driving distance from whatever event I was at was available. Because anybody can stay in a hotel, that's easy, but it's also a pain in the neck, and I don't like hotels. But a naturist B&B, it's just all there. It's all the comforts of home. You can be clothes free. Even while you're eating your meals in a hotel, you have to get dressed to go downstairs. And
That's
if
right.
people want to get a hold of you, Cynthia, how do they do that for your B&B?
There's a website, Clothing Optional Home Network is the website, and they just go on that. There's a phone number to call. They'll talk to Larry. He does all of our bookings. It used to be there was 10 to 12 different places all over the place, all over the United States, and actually there was one in Mexico and yacht out of the Virgin Islands. We're down to 2 places, unfortunately, one in Oregon and us. It's just
I didn't realize
people
that.
got older. They decided they didn't want to do it anymore, and Larry's not really pushing to expand it as much either. So
Yeah.
it's just the 2 places left.
Okay. Well, they can reach out to you if they want to do that. Turning back to the business at hand, Linda Weber, if there's something you could do as the president of ANR in association with the Naturist Society Foundation that would lift up both organizations, what would that be? And Cynthia, while she's answering, I'm going to ask you the same question, so you have some time to think about it. I'm putting Linda on the spot, though. So, Linda, anything that you would tackle on? Like, here's something if we work together, we could all do better. What do you think?
Well, I think just having our first event, our first gathering, I think will be something that will show that we're working together, that the organizations really have more commonalities than they don't. Like I said, I think there was, decades back, it was more of a competition. You either were one or the other. But I enjoy beaches, and beaches are part of more the Naturist Society Foundation, and so we have clubs, but why can't we just have where we can do all of them? Just have all of the things that are available. Like I am part of SCNA, so I've been to Rolf and Cynthia's place because I've been part of that club. So we've always kind of traveled in circles, and there's a lot of people that do. They've got, like I said, they have membership in both organizations. So why not have it where we can, get everybody together, and it doesn't really, I don't think you're really going to see that where there's a dichotomy. Oh, these are the AANR people, and these are the Nature Society Foundation. I don't think you're going to see that. I think you're going to just see a group of people getting together and kind of showing each other what the organizations do individually, but that we're more alike than we are different. And so I just want it to be kind of a fun gathering for everybody, and that's kind of what Cynthia and I have talked about. But like I said, with budgets and everything at the end of the year, we have to plan for that, and then we can start something next year. But that's just basically is just getting together and just having a good time and realizing we're all part of the same philosophy.
That's right. And then everybody wins. Cynthia Holbach and the Naturist Society Foundation, your thoughts on the same question?
Yeah, actually, we have two gatherings that are set up for next year. We're doing another one at Oak Lake Trails in September this time. We did it in April this year and ran into tornadoes. So
Yeah.
we decided to move it to September to avoid that. And then the second one is going to be at Glen Eden in Southern California, which is in October of next year. They're both at clubs. They both have ANDEE members who obviously are at the clubs. We want to bring in the Nature Society Foundation members as well, and work together with them. So I see those two opportunities coming up for next year.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. We've been talking to Linda WEBER, the president of the American Association for Nude Recreation, and Cynthia Holbach, the president for the Naturist Society Foundation. And Linda, tell our listeners how they can either find you or how they can become a member today. We encourage people on every single show. In fact, we say it like this: are you a member of AANR? If so, terrific. If not, you can go to AANR.com and become a member today. Is that really the best way to do it?
Absolutely. Yeah, just go to the website and you can go ahead and join up. And we would just love to have your membership.
Absolutely. Cynthia, same thing. If they want to become a member of the Nature Society Foundation, which costs less than a bathing suit, as we pointed out, how do they do that?
They can go to the website as well, the Nature Society Foundation website, and join. Some clubs like SCNA offer both memberships through the club so that there's a little discount. I know I do that for our club. So, I mean, that's just another way of doing it. The easy way is to go through the website.
Okay, you used to do that, right? For SCNA, you used to get memberships of both organizations, right?
I still do. Yeah. I'm still quite involved with SCNA as well. So.
Okay, well, very good. Well, it's been great to have talked to both of you. We have the leaders of the two most significant, most prominent naturist organizations, basically anywhere on the planet, as they like to say, certainly in America. And it's been a pleasure to have talked to each of you. I'd like to have you both back on, either together again when you're ready or individually. You folks just let me know. But let's say thank you, and let's do this again soon. To Cynthia Holbach, the president of the Nature Society Foundation. Cynthia, thank you very much for all of your time today.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. And also Linda WEBER, president of the American Association for Nude Recreation. Linda, thank you very much for your time today as well.
Thank you, Frank. And it's always a pleasure. And it's always a pleasure to be here with Cynthia as well.
Absolutely. Let's do this again. And to Linda and Cynthia, each of you go out there and have a great close-free day. We'll talk again soon.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Two very terrific ladies, Linda Weber, the president of the American Association for Nude Recreation, and Cynthia Holbach, the president and chair for the Naturist Society Foundation. And on the next two shows, episodes 73 and 74, we will speak to Tom Rogers, the husband of Andee Rogers. While Andee talks to the women about naturism, Tom has been talking to the men. Well, you've been listening to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 72 today. We give you a brand new show every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Continue to join us. Check us out on our website, nakednudistandnaturist.com, Spotify, Google, Amazon/Audible, Apple Podcasts, and also on Twitter. You can write us anywhere, anytime, any place. And we thank you for being with us today. Plan to join us for every single one of our shows here and have your clothes off when you're listening. We have our clothes off when we're broadcasting, enjoying the naturist life.
We celebrate clothes-free living for all. Remember to enjoy being naked and join us again for Naked, Nudist, and Naturist.
We drop a brand new show every Saturday morning, so come back and join us. Have your clothes off when you do for Naked, Nudist, and Naturist. Have a great clothes-free day.